For more than 100 years, Remembrance Sunday has been a key date in the national calendar. Veterans, armed services personnel and the public gather at memorials around the UK to pay tribute to those that lost their lives during conflict. But this year, the 100th anniversary of the Cenotaph being installed, the traditional wreath-laying and national anthem singing has been put on hold. On Remembrance Sunday, 10,000 people usually gather around this war memorial to honour the fallen members of the armed forces. But this year, for the first time ever, it will be a closed event with members of the public being asked not to join and instead remember by staying at home. Some say it's a betrayal to those who we owe such a huge debt. Daily Mail columnist Robert Hardman says it's a cringeworthy response from the government.
This idea that somehow we've all got to stay at home just doesn't wash with the veterans. I've been talking to a lot of them in recent days, and they're frankly furious because they take the view you're still allowed to go to the shops. On Remembrance Sunday, you can still get down to the pub, you can still take your family to lunch there, you can drop in at Sainsbury's, you can get on a bus or a tube. You just can't go and pay your respects. Even at the Cenotaph, there are only going to be 30 veterans. Those 30 veterans have been picked on the basis that they're able-bodied. No one's allowed to be in a wheelchair, you can't have a carer. Normally there'd be 10,000, there are just going to be 30. Of those, only 7 are allowed to lay wreaths. So it's really very unsatisfactory.
The government is urging the public to watch the smaller service from home on their TV and say the plans will be a fitting tribute. But it's not just the ceremonies likely to be affected this year. The annual Poppy Appeal, which has raised billions of pounds for veterans, is likely to take a financial hit. With less people walking through public spaces where poppies are traditionally sold, the Royal British Legion are urging people to buy poppies online.
Very different this year. Obviously there's no parades, there's no big services, but we're encouraging people to stand on their doorstep for 2 minutes on Remembrance Sunday at 11 o'clock. Wear their poppy, be it displayed in the window, wear it with pride yourselves and take part in the act of remembrance.
For serving armed forces personnel, public support through wearing a poppy means a great deal. Andy and Kate got married after meeting during the Poppy Appeal. They're hoping people will still offer their support this year.
The way the public donate and they come up to us when we do Poppy Day every year is outstanding. It put my faith back in the community. Been out on ops and things like that. Just didn't think you were respected as such for the job that you do. But coming here every year, year in, year out, it's absolutely overwhelming just seeing the support we get.
And I think the general public donate to the uniform as a thanks for the past, but actually what RBL is doing is a thanks for the future, for those times when servicemen and women need those services that RBL provides.
But it will be more difficult to buy poppies this year, with less poppy sellers spread further apart. Actor and journalist Ross Kemp, who filmed with troops in Afghanistan, is urging people to give the appeal their full support.
The 40,000 people that would normally out collecting, 30% to 35% of those won't be on your streets because they fall into the vulnerable bracket. So at a time where the need is greatest, sadly, the opportunities to go and buy that poppy have been diminished. A lot of armed forces personnel, whether they be Navy, Air Force or Army, are working on the front line fighting COVID in many of our hospitals alongside NHS staff. So it's great to remember that, just because we're not in a major conflict right now, we often rely and sometimes often take for granted sacrifices made by our armed forces. And also, should this get worse, and sadly, I'm no soothsayer, but it looks like we're going to go into another lockdown, just say there's floods again, like there were 2 winters ago, we're going to need our armed forces. And in the middle of a COVID epidemic, we're going to need our armed forces. So between now and the 11th, if you get an opportunity to buy a poppy, please do.
While the opportunities to commemorate the fallen will be diminished this year, the public are still urged to do what they can to ensure they are remembered.